Hey guys, this is Justin from McMurry Hand Forged. Let's talk about seasoning and upkeep of carbon steel pans. So, carbon steel pans season and use very much like cast iron in that you apply a high smoke point oil and then cook it in your oven for a while to let it polymerize to give you that lovely non-stick finish. So, there are a few tools that we need to do to mitigate some risks. That risk being that we are dealing with a very hot pan. And a few of those things that we can use are either a rag to isolate our skin from the pan, or an oven mitt, or some type of hot glove to insulate us so we won't get burnt. The pans are preheated in the oven at 200 degrees for about 15 or 20 minutes just to get the pan hot so it will begin to take the wax. I like to use these Simbo gloves. You can get them on Amazon. These ones have been through the wash a few times, so you can see they got some lint on them, little dinglies. But they work great. What I like about them is they have a long cuff, so you don't get those wrist burns. And they're double-sided. Now, I haven't been able to find a difference between the sides. So if you switch hands with them and you're using the blue on the inside of your palm, I haven't been able to find a difference. But the main thing is that they're very resistant to the heat. Another thing that we're going to need is a wax or an oil. I like to use buzzy wax just because it's easy to use. This is two different types of high smoke point oil, in this case canola oil and grapeseed oil, that's bound up in beeswax. And the reason for that is because it makes it very easy to use. It's in this nice little twist top lid that keeps it secure. You can leave it on the stove, keep it in the fridge, whatever you'd like to do. But it's easy to apply. You just wipe some on a rag and you can apply. Now, for the rags, you will need 2 rags. I like to use these low-lint towels just because they don't leave little hangers or lint bits on the pans as readily. You will need 2 because you need one to apply the wax and one to remove the wax. So one will apply that wax on the pan and get it nice and glossy, and then another one to wipe as much back off as you can so that you get thin coats. The key is very thin coats. You don't want thick coats because when it's a thick coat, then it starts to gel and it just doesn't look right. It doesn't give you that nice deep chocolate finish. So let's do it. I've got a pan in the stove in my big oven here at the shop. We are in the clean room for seasoning. As you can see, we're on our stainless table. You can do this on your oven, it doesn't matter. We just have a clean room here for this sort of thing. So we are going to take it out of the oven. It's been preheating for about 15 minutes at about 200 degrees. So let's pull it out. All right, so we've got a pan here. This one is actually in production. You can see it's kind of an uneven finish. That's because it's only had one coating of buzzy wax. So what we want to do is we want to apply another coating. So the first thing that we will do is we're going to take our rag, our application rag, and we're going to dip it, just wipe a little bit of that buzzy wax off onto it. You can see there's a little bit there on the towel. And then we're going to go ahead and being very careful to hit every surface of that pan. We're going to go ahead and apply the wax. Now the reason we're at 200 degrees is just so that the wax or oil will wick into the surface of the steel a little better and also spread a little more easily. Since this is a production pan, I'm going to go ahead and do the handle as well, although that's not necessary if you're just doing maintenance. So we've had our application. Now we have to wipe off the excess. The key, remember, is very thin coats. So we've got our rag here. Let's go ahead and wipe off with our clean rag the excess oil. Being sure to get that middle. Sometimes you just go around the corners and you forget about that center section. And again, in my case, since this is a production pan, I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the excess there. Now we'll go ahead and do the back side just to show you again. We'll get our application rag. We're going to apply some wax. We're going to go ahead and run it on the outside of the pan. Again, this isn't necessary if you're just doing maintenance on your pan. You really only care about the cook surface. But since this is a production pan, I want to be sure that we have a good color all the way around. And then with our second rag, we're going to go ahead and wipe off the excess. It's very important that you wipe off as much as you can. You don't want too much on that pan, because then you risk that kind of gelling. It looks weird. So now we are going to put this back in the oven at 500 degrees for 1 hour. 1 hour at 500 degrees. What that'll do is that will allow that oil to polymerize on the surface of this pan. And that's what gives it that nice deep chocolate finish. Looks beautiful after it's done. You'll notice the pan will darken. It'll just continue to darken to a real deep, beautiful chocolate bronze color. And that's what we want. We want that deep, dark color. That means that the wax and the oil are doing their job and giving you a nice non-stick pan. So this pan has been seasoned. Our next step is to put it back in the oven. In my case, a big commercial oven. But in your oven, you just turn it to 500 degrees, ensure that it's preheated. Go ahead and put your oven in there, or your pan in your oven for 1 hour. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, once it's been in the oven for 1 hour, when you take it out, of course, it's 500 degrees. It's very hot. You can just set it out on top of the oven and let it cool for 5 to 10 minutes until it comes down to either just around 200 degrees to reapply for a second coat, should you desire, or just let it cool until it's stone cold, and then go ahead and use it. So if you are repairing damage, a good amount of passes, that was 1 coat that we did, by the way, a good amount of passes is about 3. So if somebody's scraped your pan somehow or otherwise damaged the seasoning, 3 passes over the top of that will just about make it like new again. So you can of course do as many as you want, and a lot of people will do that to sort of skip the break-in. Especially with a new pan. You get a new pan, you can either cook in it right out of the box, or you can sort of skip that break-in and season it a few times, and then the pan just gets better and better and better, and it'll serve you for many years. So that's the name of the game, and that's how you season a pan. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Thanks for using McMurry Hand Forged pans. Bye-bye.